Exciting.
Good evening. We're going to call the South Bay Board of Directors meeting to order for Thursday, May the 23rd, 2024. I want to verify our quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum.
Confirmation posting of the agenda.
Yes, it's been properly posted.
Any announcements of any changes to the agenda?
I do have an announcement, not a change to the agenda, but we are delighted to be able to welcome a new member of our team, Addie Adijulaya, who is on our homeless team. And Addie, stand up and say hello. Addie comes to us with that smile perfectly on her face.
Yes.
For now.
I will, Adijulaya, Adi Adijulaya.
Adijulaya.
Okay. I've used her as a photographer already, so.
Yeah, I'm his personal photographer.
Yes.
See,
All the angles.
Jack of all trades. Okay. That's great.
And Jackie, can I say just two sentences about Addie, Board of Directors. Addie comes to us from Safe Place for Youth, a very high profile youth nonprofit in Venice. And so she has a lot of experience in homelessness. And she also lives in Wilmington. So she is a local.
Okay. Thank you, Ronson. Next is our comment from the public. I have two speaker cards. First up is Brandy Key.
So again, I would just have a very small announcement to add on to my normal agency report that's in the agenda packet. We now have two new email lists. The public can now receive email notifications for permit advisories and updates. So if you want to sign up for these lists on our website, you would receive notifications regarding announcements related to permitting advisories, other related news, other permit related news, and certified permit professional program upgrades. That's fun to say, such as upcoming tests for certification. So if you are interested, if you want to sign up for those or any of our notification systems, you can sign up on our website. I did give Natalie, I did send her the link earlier, so she should be able to provide.
Thank you. Next will be John Warner.
Yes. Good evening. I'm John Warner. I'm the CEO for the Marine Mammal Care Center, and I am here because I want to provide you with an update on where things stand with marine mammal stranding in Los Angeles County, and to urge you all to look at our proposal that we've submitted to each local coastal city and South Bay COG members for funding and support in order to continue meeting the needs that we're seeing on our beaches. So we are at capacity already. We have been hitting capacity at our hospital in San Pedro for the last couple of months, and having to leave animals on the beach. Part of this is there are a lot of things going on in our ocean that are causing animals to strand and get sick. We're seeing more animals, 65% more admits in the first 4 months of the year than we did last year. Last year was a bad year. As you all know, the last summer with the domoic acid bloom, this year is projected to be a lot worse. We're getting reports from NOAA that we will see a high volume of animals in the next few months like we did last year. But we are already exceeding our operational limits, and our funding is currently running on reserves from last year. And we need support from all of our partners to continue to operate at the levels needed. Why I am talking to all of our cities over the last 10 months, yes, every time a marine mammal strands in Los Angeles County, it's not just an animal welfare issue, it's a public safety and a public health issue. We rescue more animals per mile of coastline in Los Angeles than anywhere else in the United States. That is how rich the ecosystem is here. And when animals strand on crowded beaches, especially in the summer, it causes a lot of angst, anxiety, and a lot of issues. Last year, our lifeguards were flooded with calls and couldn't take calls for the safety of people. And that's about to happen again if we can't figure out how to increase operating capacity. And it would be irresponsible in my mind to not make you all aware of that and look to our partners for help. So we've submitted proposals to every city. I've met with anyone and everyone who will talk to me over the last 10 months. City managers have been fantastic, very much appreciated, and I've submitted proposals to all, also have presented at South Bay COG a few months ago. So if anyone wants or does not know what I'm referring to, I'm happy to talk to you. anytime you want. Jeff has a couple of handouts that will be passed around with an update on stats so that you have more than just my 2 minutes of talking right now. I am open to talking to anyone at any time and coming to speak with you. Supervisor Hahn and Supervisor Mitchell have been extremely supportive. Supervisor Hahn has put in a request for funding from the county. And so we're asking everyone to sort of chip in with a small amount.
Complete your thoughts. Your time is up.
And intact overall. So
Thank you.
very much.
Consent calendar. Entertain a motion.
Moved.
Been properly moved in second, David.
Right, any opposition? Any? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're now at our presentation portion of our agenda. And so glad to see our president, President Parham from California State University, Dominguez Hills. He comes by way of Irvine, and I see they gave me a bio to read. And everything on here is true, but his wife is Davita, who was, we call her the first lady of the university. Outstanding, wonderful young lady who makes sure that this young man stays on point. But Dr. Parham is the 11th president of California State University, Dominguez Hills, and which is one of the highly diverse metropolitan university primarily serving the South Central and South Bay area of Los Angeles. It was established in 1960. It is one of 23 campuses comprised of the California State University system, the largest system in public higher education within the nation. Dr. Parham previously served as a vice chancellor of student affairs and an adjunct faculty member of the University of California, Irvine, where he had been there since 1985. Prior to these positions, he served as assistant vice chancellor for counseling and health services, counseling center director, and director of center and life planning center at UCI. Dr. Parham has held an appointment on the faculty at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Dr. Parham grew up in Southern California and received his bachelor's degree in social ecology from University of California, Irvine. He completed his master's degree in counseling psychology at Washington University in St. Louis and received his PhD in counseling psychology at Southern Illinois University and Carbondale. He is licensed to practice psychology in California, so that's why you be analyzing me. But there's no hope. But truly, this is a friend of mine who we've hit it off from the first time that we met each other. I'm so pleased that he agreed to actually come and speak. By way of my kind of bias about the university, my father graduated from the university, my mother, my wife, my daughter, myself, my son attended. So I'm an actual through and through Toro all the way. So my president, presenting to you guys, Dr. Parham.
Yeah.
Let me say good evening.
Good evening.
Let me say good evening to the rest of you. Good evening. Let me say greetings to those that I am seeing online. Let me say good evening to you as well. I want to first of all thank the board for inviting your California State University, Dominguez Hills to be with you this evening. Joining me are members of my team. The president is really only as good as work produced by the people who work with and for them. So say hello to Mr. David Gamboa, who's our Associate Vice President for External and Government Relations. Next to him is Dr. Justin Gamage, who is a tenured professor in Africana Studies, who I've recently stolen to come over to the dark side of administration, who is now my Next to him is Mr. Derek Mims, who runs our government relations statewide and in some cases federal. But those are members of the team who've joined us tonight, so I am grateful to have them as well as others. So I greet you on behalf of my cabinet, our students, our illustrious faculty, and our dedicated and committed staff. So thank you for your attention. In your handouts that I won't cover a lot of are a couple of brochures I would invite you to pay attention to and share. One is the booklet that runs our South Bay Economic Forecast and Industry Outlook. There were times when the Dominguez Hills A didn't do this. B, we used to have to run our data through another institution. Now we do this all by ourselves. And produce that South Bay Economic Forecast that is attended by many of you in corporations in the South Bay. But if you want to know what's going on, we've got some very outstanding faculty and researchers, as well as industry leaders who come together to talk about what we can see on the horizon, things we need to watch out for and things we need to do. So that is part of the book and the data that you will see there that we have crunched. In addition, you'll see a fact sheet, which I'll cover in a moment, but also we provided each of you with a DH magazine. We hope this will wind up your coffee tables and your businesses and other places. If you'd like other copies, we can make sure you have those as well. It is available online. You'll also see that on the first page with my president's note is a code right down here at the bottom, QR code that you're able to scan and pull up information on different things that we do. So feel free to do that as we circle back around and inform you about things that are going on at the university. With that, let me now spend the rest of my about 12 minutes left talking about university highlights. So let's go with the first slide. So it's always important to know, who are we? There were three critical questions that the great Algerian psychiatrist Frantz Fanon argued about the human condition. First question is, who am I? The second question is, am I who I say I am? And the third question is, am I all I ought to be? Who am I is a question of my identity. What is my nature, my essence, my character? The second question, am I who I say I am, is a question of congruence. I mean, what is the level of overlap between who we say we are and what we actually do? Am I all I ought to be is a question of actualizing potential. But all the ways in which we've been blessed as an institution, how much do we actualize in that potential, and where does our growth trajectory taking place? So who we are starts with the 1960s when we were founded. Ironically, we were founded in position to be California State College, Palos Verdes. How many people knew that? Right, just a few. How many people did not? All right, that's like more than half the room and some of the people online. So
It's not gonna be on the exam.
there will be an exam, and point values are double when we get to the end. So fast forward, the first classes were open in about 1962 or 3 during that academic year in what was an old bank building. If my memory is correct, it was the Cal Fed building. Fast forward a couple of years to 1965, you'll recall that Southern California experienced the Watts Rebellion. During that Watts Rebellion and the post-rebellion era, Governor Edmund G. Brown, we called him Pat Brown back in the day for those of us who grew up in the city. So I'm dating myself a little bit back then. I was a young man. Governor Brown came down, met with some of the city fathers and other folk, but they determined that we needed to create a gateway and a door of opportunity for the residents of the urban core of South Central Los Angeles. So Cal State College, that later became Cal State University Dominguez Hills, was relocated to the Dominguez Ranch. And now we sit at the nexus between South Central LA to the north, Compton to the east, South Bay to the south and west. So we are happy about that. And later on in the early 70s is when we gained university status. And so that is part of what you see, I think, in that timeline. Let's keep going with the next slide. What you'll see also is our fact sheet. On the fact sheet is information, but I want to point to a couple of pieces. One, our enrollment numbers now are going down, interestingly enough, like they are in most of the country. They are not eroding as quickly as other places are, but this is a post-COVID reality that all of higher education is having to get used to. So you'll see a number there that looks like 14.2 as a head count. That's a little different than the 17,027 we were at a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. But what's more important than the overall total are what it represents. So we are right now 91, let me say that again, 91% students of color. Characterized by 68% Latinx students. That is the second most in the state. We have 12% African American students. That is the largest percentage of Black students of any public university in the entire state of California. We have, we just dropped a little in our API population, Asian Pacific Islander population is right now about 6%, 6.5%. We've got about 3.5% decline in the state. We've got about the same total in our multiracial folks, about 5% Caucasian, but we are literally a multicultural mecca. And so when you want to find out why America is having so much difficulty figuring out how do we get along across demographic boundaries, if you want to figure out how to do it, come on right down the block to Dominguez Hills. We do this on a daily basis. What you'll also see in those convergent spaces is a profile of students that is quite interesting. We have students who are 66% first generation. 70% of our students plus are Pell eligible. 60% of that cohort have an EFC, the expected family contribution of 0. And then we still have a large number of students who, through no fault of their own, based on the schools they come from and the community colleges, who in my opinion are still not prepared to manage the rigors of the university curriculum. So they need a little bit of remediation. Now, I take that as a badge of honor. In the South Bay, what we cannot afford to do is to put our noses in the air and act like some of the other places around the country, including places I used to work at and graduated from, who judge their worth on selectivity ratios. Who are we? We were founded on social justice roots. So we will continue to provide that social justice access. In the California's master plan, there are 3 legs to that stool. One is excellence in academic and research. The second is access to the state citizenry and affordability. Now, even though the master plan has a segment you see in Cal States and community colleges, what we want is not to judge our worth by the selectivity ratio. So you will not hear us say we only take the top 2% of this or that, or 5% of this or that. We've got 4.3 students who we finished, and I've got some 2.5 students trying to be 3.0. What I want to do at this point in my career, having been an Ivy League professor, by the way, if you ever get on Jeopardy, and they ask you who was the first African-American academic psychologist the University of Pennsylvania ever hired after it was founded by Ben Franklin 240 years before, I'm looking at you. And say, right, without a question to say who was, then you won't get credit for the right response. But I've been in places like the Ivy League, I've been at the UC. So I've worked in environments like that. We will not, at your Cal State Dominguez Hills, judge our worth by our selectivity ratios. It is about how many lives we can transform. And that's why we're so glad to have your help and support. You'll see as we continue on the fact sheet that we are one of the cheapest games in town, right? Even with the little bit of disinvestment the state has done in public higher education over the years. When I went to UC, 0 tuition. We pay fees. Now tuition, still affordable, is about $7,000 a year plus fees, room and board, et cetera. So still affordable, but expensive to some folks, depending on the contextual factors that describe your life. So what we are trying to do is really move past that. But in the Cal State system, 50% of our students graduate with 0 debt. Of those that do have debt, the average debt across an entire campus life to graduation is about $15,000 to $16,000. Truly, it's not a question of how much does it cost, but rather what are students and families prepared to invest in their future. If you think about even if you had to take out that kind of loan and want to know what it's like to have to pay that off over 10 or 15 years, who couldn't pay off $15,000 over 10 to 20 years of a loan at the lowest interest rate with government subsidy? Right? That's the investment we're asking folks to make and the strategic partnerships that we have. What you'll also want to know are on the fact sheets, what we pride ourselves on. You will see us raising, we have more accreditations on that campus now than we have ever had in the history of that campus. Let me say that again. We have more academic accreditation, quality assurance than we've ever had in the history of that campus. But on top of that, we are not number 50, not number 25, not number 10 or 5. We are the number 1 in the nation, according to CollegeNet for Social and Economic Mobility Index. We are raising the trajectory of people's lives and trying to transform people's lives. Let's go to the next slide. You'll also see that we have 81 total degrees across those 5, actually 6 colleges, but one of those is our College of Professional and Extended Education. 54 undergraduate degrees, 26 graduate degrees, and the first of 3 doctorates that are on our landscape. We opened up the doctorate in occupational therapy this past year. Those students are currently in study. This fall, we will open up our 2nd doctorate in education. And in 2 years, we will have, thought we'd get it in a year, but I think it'll take us 2. We'll have a doctorate in nursing practice, so we will have 3 doctorates in that particular space.
Very good.
Across those 6 colleges, there are College of Arts and Humanities, Business Administration and Public Policy, which is, by the way, AACSB accredited. We have College of Continuing and Professional Education, the College of Education, which, by the way, trains, I think, probably the 3rd most teachers who teach in LA Unified, and we are number 1 for training STEM-oriented teachers in the region. We also have the College of Natural and Behavioral Sciences and the College of Health Services and Nursing. So that's kind of the academic profile about who we are or about me. Let's go to the next slide. So I already talked to you about the demographics of what we represent, but the students of color is really quite important for us. We are, in fact, that figure right there is a little bit off. We are close to and over 65% female. So if you want to know where the diverse women leaders are coming from in the nation, they're coming from your California State University, Dominguez Hills. Next slide. So I'm going to try to point values at double now as I'm running out of time. So the student count that you see, the number of applications we receive every year are first-gen stats that go kind of up and down, but we are now sitting on 115,000 alumni plus those we just graduated this year. I just got through conducting 6 ceremonies, 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, about an hour and a half apiece, where we graduated those students and their families who invested in us. And so now we're excited about what's going on there. Let's go to the next slide. Mr. Mayor, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good, I'm trying to figure out which.
Mayor, there's a seat right here.
I appreciate that.
So these again are some of the rankings, but we are first in that mobility index. We were second the year before on a different one. Number 1 public university for awarding bachelor's degrees to African-American folk by diversity institutes in higher education. But those rankings are what is invested in impacting the quality of life in students, not selectivity ratios, and that we pride ourselves on keeping people out. Next slide. You'll be able to see some of these rankings in those places. So where are we going academically? So new academic degree programs, we have undergraduate, we have art history, we have biophysics, dance, design, exercise science, language and linguistics. We have new master's programs in accounting, teaching English as a second language, and new professional doctorates in occupational therapy, and they have leadership that will start this fall. Next slide. Reputational growth I talked about before. We are fully WASC accredited for 10 years. That came in 2018. So we'll go through 28. Our College of Business Administration and Public Policy that had gone 27 years before I arrived at that campus, being unaccredited.
Wow.
I'm used to a whole different standard of excellence in that. So what I told the team is those days are what? Over. So we went ahead, did the work, right? Pushed ourselves to get it done. And now AACSB came back. That is gold standard in business schools in America. We are now fully accredited. Our journalism program is accredited. So they have now joined the ranks of the other accredited disciplines in our particular space. And so we're feeling good about that. Next slide. What are we doing relative to infrastructure? In the African tradition, it is often said that it is the outer garment that best adorns the inner beauty of a person. Let me say that again. It is the outer garment that best adorns the inner beauty of a person. So what you can't do is walk up to a campus and see a bunch of trash and old dilapidated buildings and assume that the quality of excellence inside is reflective of what you see on the outside. So that had to change as well. So now when you go across the campus, you won't see trash on the perimeter and all kinds of spaces, or even as many dilapidated buildings as we used to have. So on the left of your screen, the big one is our Science and Innovation Building. That was the first building they built with any state funds, academic building, in 25 years on their campus when I arrived. All right? Now, I want you to pay attention to that as you think about advocating to the state. Because when I come from places like the University of Pennsylvania as an Ivy League professor, when I spent 33 years at the University of California, Irvine, we would not treat those students like that. Why is it that our students in the South Bay at Dominguez Hills don't deserve new buildings like that? Part of the advocacy that we need is making sure that your voices are heard at the state to say, we're not going to allow you to neglect Dominguez Hills any longer. What you see on the top right is a residence hall. That is our 506 bed space residence hall that flanks the 647 bed spaces that exist in the apartment style living. Now, those apartments they built for the '84 Olympics, so they were done in about '83. They weren't built to be commercial grade, right? So, you know, we put more money in those than it takes to, right, yield from them because of just the upkeep is so there, because they just weren't built to be commercial grade. But it's important because I need students on campus long and not short of the model of who we were is a commuter campus. In order to get our students through, given that demographic profile, I need them on campus longer, not shorter periods of time. I cannot have students having drive-by interactions with our campus and assume they're going to get done. We need to have them on campus, and we're trying to build that infrastructure, which is why the strategic partnership with many of the businesses and municipalities that we have here is important. On the bottom right, you'll see our business, what we call the I&I building, Innovation and Instruction. That's home for our College of Business Administration and Public Policy, but that now flanks the north side of the campus. The dorms flank the eastern side off of Central, that science building, the south side off of the university. And we have more in between. Let's keep going. So going far together is our new strategic plan. And it is anchored right in where are we going? It took us 1.5 years to put this up. So this will take us through about 2030 in the space. But it's our commitment to learn, grow, and thrive both individually and collectively as an institution. Next slide. Our strategic commitments in that strategic plan are anchored in 5 pillars. You'll see there, thriving students, thriving educators. Every moment is a teaching moment on our campus. Everybody is an educator, from the president through the janitor and the custodians, who can even put their arm around the student and say, child, you can make it, because they got to have a sense of, do they belong on the college campus? We want equitable access. We're not just trying to deny access to anybody. We have a culture of care on that campus. And also we want to be a pillar of the community. We pride ourselves on not just being in the community, but of the community. Let me say that again. We're not just in the community putting up boundaries and walls to keep the public out. We're trying to invite the public to come in, and that is their university. We are of the community, which is why you see so much activity going on from state legislators and assembly people and local folk in the city of Carson, et cetera. We have great relationships with our partners. Want to have great relationships with all of you as well. Let's keep going. So point values are triple now. So talking faster. So where are we going now? So we have to continue to build on the infrastructure. So right now we are into phase 4. We are breaking ground. I've already broken ground on that new residence hall complex. That's a 288 bed space, 4-story building that will add to the 1,153 bed spaces we have on campus now. Now, what I said when I first arrived is I put 4,000 bed spaces on that campus yesterday if I could have. But right now we've had to slow it up, go a little slower. So this next 288 will be there. What we'll also do next to it is put a dining commons on that space. Who builds a residence hall in a plan and doesn't build a dining commons on campus? So imagine, right, your grandparents who are confronted with economic challenge, where they tell them, you can pay rent, you can buy food, or you can pay for prescription meds, but you can't do all 3. Make a choice. Those were the options that they were providing with Dominguez Hills before I arrived. You can build the 506 bed spaces in that prior residence hall I showed you, but you got to find a way to feed your kids. Or I know you need 506, but we're only gonna let you build 300 of them, and then you can build a dining commons. Who makes that choice on a college that size? Right? That's what we were faced with. So now we have a chance to put a dining commons there, thanks to our California Legislative Black Caucus.
Mhm.
Right, let's give them all due for that on the leadership at that point of State Senator Steve Bradford. And next is our pride and joy. We're about to break ground on that. We're doing the demolition on that now, taking down our field house, et cetera. We'll probably break ground on that in October, maybe late September, early October. Our new health, wellness, and rec center. So that came out of COVID. If you want to know what COVID did, everybody in COVID talked about how are we going to recover from COVID. Now, remember that? What I said to the team is I'm not interested as your president in recovering back to a doggone thing. Because psychologically, what recovery implies is what you're recovering back to was normal and healthy in the first place. It wasn't. The biggest victims of COVID when it came were Black, brown, poor Asian, poor white. COVID didn't come around the corner and say, look at that demographic, let me go impact them. They were already impacted by health conditions that included diabetes, heart disease, pulmonary disorders, hypertension, and obesity. The time to teach your people, my friends, how to be healthy is not when they're 50 struggling with a pandemic, when they're 17 to 25 on the university campus. So why is Cal State Dominguez Hills the only campus in this CSU 5? Not Northridge, not Fullerton, not Long Beach, not Pomona, not Cal State LA that didn't have a health, wellness, and rec center. Those days are over too. So I went to the legislature, to the Black Caucus, and said, what we gonna do? They gave me a $20 million down payment for that. And then I went and challenged my students. The only thing I've heard from my students is how poor we are. They are poor, true. But I told them, literally, I don't want to hear any more about how poor you are. The only thing I want to hear coming out your mouth is what are you prepared to invest in your future? And the students decided to put a referendum together and pass the referendum over the course of the semester they did it to fund the other $66 million. It's now going to build that $86 million square foot facility we will break ground on. That is a game changer for the campus. So you can see how the infrastructure is moving. Let's go. Point values are now quadruple. So what I'm loving is the strategic partnerships and the town-gown relationship we have with the city. And I'm loving the fact that we are able to do this particular work. So you'll see some of our neighbors from the city of Carson there and some of my academic team. But that town-gown promise is a shining example of what enriching civic engagement looks like between your Cal State University Dominguez Hills and in this case, the city of Carson. But why aren't we enjoying that kind of relationship with some of the other municipalities that are in this room? Some of you I've been to see, some of you we haven't. Why aren't we using satellite facilities for Cal State University Dominguez Hills with the intellectual horsepower we have to train up some of your employees who need some upskilling and reskilling? We're putting up lots of new facilities and arenas and other places and other places in cities and municipalities, but we've got to be able to couple it with education. The hope of any university, is how it engages in addressing the needs of the community that it serves. But the hope of that community is what we invest in our children, and in this case, our adults who move forward. Let's continue with our last slide. So the town-gown promise is reflected in some of the internship and fellowship programs we have with the city of Carson. That mayor decided, along with the city council, to get together and say, we're gonna designate certain slots, to provide internship opportunities for students at Dominguez Hills who are now going to come and learn about not only city government, but also how do we create the next generation of folks who are interested in public policy and also civic engagement. And also you'll see our Small Business Growth Academy in its third session, where we have an incubator, a business incubator in our new business building that is training some of these folks from the community. We would love and welcome other members of your communities to think about being in that space as well. Next slide. So the handout that you have as far as South Bay economic forecast and industry outlook, the next one is scheduled for Thursday, October 24th. It is hosted by Frank Motek. So y'all know Motek on Money on radio. He is our host every year who comes to do that. And that's when our economic forecast will be followed by a reception that we'll do in our student center and then in our business complex. Next slide. And so I will simply say that I'm fond of telling our team, this is not your grandmother's Dominguez Hills any longer. So if you haven't been on campus in a while, that's some of what you will see. But when I came to the campus, I had about 3 or 4 goals, major goals, but 2 of them in particular. Is I said, I want to change the mindset of the external community for what you could expect out of Cal State University of Dominguez Hills. I think we've done that. So we are now on the radar screen of this region, of this state, all the way up through the nation and the White House. So now we're received in places like the Vice President's office and the White House office and other places when we go into Washington, D.C. When our Vice President held a forum when the Supreme Court passed the reproduction rights and wanted to have a forum about that, they called up Dominguez Hills and said, we need one of the presidential scholars to be one of the 30 students invited nationally to come and talk with them about that space. We're on their radar screen as well. But also, what I told our team on campus, even as we change the mindset of the external community about what you can expect out of your Cal State University of Dominguez Hills, what I told the internal team is one of the biggest challenges I have as your president is providing you with a key that will unlock, so let me be a psychologist for a minute, that will unlock the shackles of conceptual incarceration that kept them locked in the way things had always been instead of the way things might be if we just dreamed about what was possible instead of settling for what was traditional and predictable. I'll close with a quote from one of my favorite, right? The American poet Langston Hughes. He argues that we should hold fast to dreams, for if they die, life is just a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Your Cal State University Dominguez Hills is in the business of mending wings that break and preventing those that do. With that, I'll stop and say, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for receiving me, and I'll be glad to take whatever questions that you have.
Any questions from my colleagues?
I couldn't have been that.
Mass it in.
Mr. President, terrific presentation. Thank you very much. To what do you attribute the erosion in enrollment from the 17,000 down to 14? I know you mentioned the pandemic, but it's surely not a reduction in the need for education in our community.
Not a reduction in the need at all. So there's an interesting formula, if you will. And the question for those online, if you didn't hear, is to what do I attribute the erosion in terms of enrollment that is happening nationally, by the way, not just locally. Northern California, in some cases, dropping 50% enrollments, right? We're down a little, which, you know, for us is not bad. The scientist in me understands there's never a single variable that ever accounts for 100% of the variance in explaining any equation. There's always multiple slices to the think of this like a pizza pie. One slice of the enrollment has to do with the pandemic and the post-COVID reality, where people have begun to rethink whether or not they want to spend their time and investing in a university education. One slice of that has to do with the assault on public higher education and even private education, and raising the question about the return on investment. One slice of that pie is people are thinking, is it too unaffordable with that? And they hear the stories about predatory loans and other things and wonder whether or not this is one of those spaces. One of those slices of the pie has to do with corporations that are now saying, we'll hire you without a college degree. One of those slices to the pie is about the minimum wage that, particularly in this area, has gone up. You can now go out and get a job making 20, in some cases, $24 an hour. So imagine you're a 20-year-old making $24 an hour. Somebody do the math for me, that's $40,000, $50,000 a year. That's a lot of money for a young kid who can't feed a family 4 and 10 years, but our young people think snapshot, not videotape. They're thinking, that's a lot of money in the moment. And we got an unemployment rate that right now is sub 4%. So with that particular piece, all those factors conspire to create that condition that's there. Do we think it's going to go up? Probably yes. But the last one, which is a pretty big slice, is that if you look at LAUSD, which is a big feeder, and some of the community colleges, they're all having enrollment problems. Why? Because the population demographic is going down, not up. People didn't have as many kids, so not as many kids coming through the pipeline. So all those factors conspire to create, I think, the enrollment declines that you see. Thank you for the question. Justin, nice to see you. Other questions? Yes, sir. Introduce yourself.
On NPR yesterday, they had a story about the the fact that we're missing men in our universities. And, you know, I'm on campus a lot. And so I've certainly seen that Dominguez Hills was ahead of most on bringing more women into campus. But now we've left our young men behind. So what's Dominguez Hills looking at doing to get more men back on campus?
Great question. When I was at Irvine, I'll compare it to that. The trend in having more women in colleges and universities than men is already hitting even, you know, our Research One universities. Back then, it was about 54-46 women to men. For us, it's huge because it's close to 65-35.
Well, my program at USC is 60-40.
Right, so it's moving in that direction. So we have programs that we have set up in particular that are targeting students in the community. But we set up two things that you want to know about. One, we have what's called a young men of color, because some of the men who are not there are men of color. So we're trying to set up programs for them. We also have what's called an MSA, which is a Male Success Alliance, which is a support group, particularly for those young men who are on campus. So we're trying to make some deliberate and intentional strides in trying to impact that population and support the men. But also we're trying to make it generational so that those programs are not just supporting students on the campus, but trying to reach down into the K-12, into high schools for sure. We're going in the middle schools too?
Middle schools right now.
Middle schools too, to reach some of the kids, particularly some of the men, and do the mentoring across that, making sure that some of those students are coming through having completed all the A through G requirements, but sometimes their school systems aren't insisting that they take and finish. So those are the kind of things that we're doing intentionally to try to increase that pipeline. Great question. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for mentioning the region areas. About 3 or 4 of our staff people are enrolling Jose States have completed your MPP or MPA program. And it's been really helpful. What is the time to degree in 6 years? What percentage of the undergrad population reaches a degree in 6 years? And how many of those work 20 hours or more outside of class?
So great question. We get judged, is the bottom line to that question, on how many students finish in 4 years and 6 years are the two markets we look at in higher education. So our 4-year rates are where?
We are at 15%.
Yeah, it's less than 20.
Yeah.
Right now. Our 6-year rates are,
We're right now at about 45.
I think we're just hair shy of 50.
50%.
But what's interesting is down the road when I was at Irvine those years, the selectivity ratios are high. So the average GPA at Irvine on 116,000 applications, 4,420 resident spots, and the average GPA is 4.3. I can take a 4.3 student and keep it at 4.3. That's easy, right? When we got 2.5 students, 2.3 students barely making the cutoff of CSUs, it takes more to get them through for resources, number one. Secondly, the average student on our campus works at least one job, sometimes two. We also have students who commute. So while we have a very small housing, population, the footprint of a place like Irvine, the master plan has them at 50%. Now, they never reach 50. We used to be around 40, 45. But they're on campus longer in faculty labs, in the library, and other places, instead of spending 2-3 hours trying to commute, taking buses from every which way, trying to get to the campus. So there are a lot of factors that impact their ability to do that. But that's what makes a difference in terms of when they can finish. So it's difficult to compare us across institutions unless you contextualize those factors with some of the data that I gave you earlier that talk not just about how much they work and how much money they think they need to make to go home and try to help families, support families, but all the levels of insecurity that they have to deal with that include food, housing, transportation, et cetera, that are in those particular spaces.
And we're seeing the 4 years go up. We're still a heavy community college transfer university.
Right.
Al Camino College is our #1 community college partner pipeline.
Number one feeder.
#1 feeder. #2 is Alley Harbor. So then from there, upon the completion of 2 years, they transfer over to Dominguez Hills. It'll take them about 2 to 3 years, depending on their program. A program in cybersecurity is going to be very different when it comes to a timeline than a program within kinesiology. I'm just not trying to compare them, but a very different type of curriculum. So they're not always going to be 2 years as the same. The sciences, the arts, business, they're going to have different timeframes when it comes to completion itself. So it's really hard to identify that, especially, and as the president mentioned, if we can build more student housing tomorrow, the show will be on the ground. But all that comes with resources that we get from the state. A lot of the other universities had private endowments where they're able to build housing a little bit faster. So we'll get there as long as we're able to keep them on campus. But in the meantime, we're working with Alcona College, Ollie College, Compton College,
LA Southwest.
Alley Southwest are our partners right now. And then within the school districts, Florence Unified, Verdado Union, LAUSD, Compton Unified. We're working on that pipeline transition. So once they're ready to go, then we can then look at graduating them within a time.
And District 7 and LAUSD as well. Tanya Ortiz Franklin is that board member who did sponsor that too. Last couple of questions. I know we're almost out of.
Yeah, we
Yes, sir.
just heard from community college district board member Trisha Narcana that there is a significant homeless population at the community college district. To what extent are you dealing with that, and how are you supported either by the state or otherwise to address that problem among your students?
So we are experiencing that, yes. We have students who are homeless, who sleep in cars, who couch surf, who do lots of things. Our population is a little bit more latent than visible, partly because we are a heavy commuter campus, so folk are coming and then leaving. But we try to get a track on that. One of the things that we've done is put in place, and we've just opened up, in fact, finally this last year, our new student center that allows us to feed folk who are hungry. We've always had an urban farm on campus. We would take fresh fruits and products, grow them, and then make them for just giveaway during the year. But our food pantry now has been upgraded, so it looks like a little mini grocery store where you can come in and, particularly for students who are economically challenged, pick up a bag, swipe your card, and just go through and pick up fresh fruits and vegetables, frozen goods, et cetera, to be able to feed yourself during the week. And so we're doing those kind of pieces for there. Some of those folk are in fact homeless, but some not. But we're also trying to find ways to create emergency housing on campus with this little bit of housing stock we have. One of the pleas that I've made when David and I and Derek have been to Washington, D.C., and we've met with HUD and we've met with some of the congressional and senatorial leaders, is to say that we appreciate the federal government's push on that. But a lot of the dollars that they're earmarking are going to states and to cities, but not coming directly to the universities. Well, some of that needs to come because we do in fact have that problem. It doesn't get highlighted as much as it does in cities. So every day when you look at the news, the homeless crisis that's happening in LA and some of your own municipalities is highlighted. But rarely do you see them come on a college campus and find out who's homeless in this particular space. So we've got to be able to highlight that with your help and assistance. But we've got to try to help our state as well as federal legislators think about earmarking some of those dollars to college campuses, because I think education is still the civil rights issue by day in the great equal.
I just wanted to say that Ronson has met with the staff. Our homeless people have met with your staff, and we're trying to help in any way we can.
Yes, as the president's aware, we met with the South Bay COG with Ronson on the campus. It's also changed the stigma. We went from pantry to the total market. And the total market, we call it a market. Anyone can go in there. And it really looks like Whole Foods. Kroger is a partner of ours. They restock our market almost daily. And now what students do is that literally, like if one was to order on an app, they pick up their groceries, right? And then take it over to their own housing. So we're trying to eliminate the stigma related to going into a pantry. And then we've been working with the COG on identifying temporary housing solutions. I was just mentioning with the team that we just worked with the Holiday Inn in Torrance for some short-term housing solution, but that's costly, right? That is still a cost factor too. So we're trying to do our best to ensure that our students don't live in their vehicles. We're doing our best to ensure that our students are going to school, being able to graduate within the timeline and not having to worry about whether they need to stay the next day.
You know, I'll leave you with this statistic as we think about going into become less event focused and more philanthropically focused. State universities, because they depend on the state for their resources and dollars, have not been into raising money in the same way some of our private universities do, or even some of our UCs do. So we were comfortable when I arrived with raising $3 million a year and patting ourselves on the back like, isn't that wonderful? We have this much need and we're raising this much money. So we've begun to turn that around in a way. So what I try to invite our folks to remember, as you deal with corporations and some of these folks who have come to the philanthropy, for every $1 million I can raise as a president or my team does, that is 10 hours of work a week I can take off the backs of one of our students and put them in the library, in the lab with one of their faculty. That'll provide $5,000 scholarships for 400 of them, or 200 of them, I should say, and $2,500 scholarships for 400 of them, for every $1 million I can make. So we're out there trying to do that work to help increase that pipeline, right? So that our 4-year and 6-year rates are going up north. So they're way higher than they used to be. But a challenge, I think, still to look at where we want to go. 50% has never been, which is the CSU's average. It's trying to be, has never been a passing grade in my class, ever. So I'm not trying to just get to that threshold of 50%. I'm trying to blow through that to be where I come from at Irvine. They're high 70s in 4 years and high 80s in 6. But that's easy to produce when you got 4.3 students on average, right? Who have lots of aid, right? 45% of them live in housing on campus and have a different lifestyle than some of the kids who are in the community. But it's our community's job to invest in institutions like ours and invest in those kids who are there, because they are really the future of our community. 60% of our alumni, 60% of them live within a 25-mile radius of that campus right there. They are your workers. We look forward to working with you and partnering with you to be able to get some of that done. I appreciate you entertaining us this evening. Thank you for the invitation.
And I just know what.
Thank you, Dr. Parham. Now we need to move on with our agenda. Budget, and I know the budget, I know Laura, you ready to start in on your budget?
Budget is on page 61, starting on page 61. Let me just mention that tonight you're hearing the budget. You're entertaining your questions, and we're going to take it back for any kind of revisions or whatever. We're not adopting the budget tonight. We're just discussing the budget tonight. So please, ask as many questions as you can. So the way we do this is we try to take in your questions, make any revisions, bring it back to the steering committee, and then it goes on the consent calendar of the June board meeting if it all fits with what you have said. So, Laura?
We also have a narrative at the end of the PDF document that details each single line item change. So if you want a detailed description of everything that's changed, that would be at the very end of the document in the narrative. All right, so we'll start off by just going through our organizational chart. This is everyone that we have in staffing right now. And next, please. All right, this is just an overview snapshot of our mid-year budget at 23-24, our year-to-date as of the end of March 2024, and then what we are proposing for the fiscal year 24-25. As you can see at the very bottom where it's use of general fund balance, we actually do not need to use our general fund balance to balance our budget because we actually are in the black. We are adopting or are proposing to adopt a balanced budget with being in the positive for $11,284. Our restricted reserve is currently fully funded at $405,000, and it will be evaluated next in fiscal year 2029.
Laura, can you hold it just a minute? We're gonna take about a 5-minute recess so everyone can.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Maybe a minute.
A minute, well, I'll say 5, 5. As the president leaves, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sick, but I do have.
All right.
Turning on and off too.
Nice to meet you. I'm not gonna, I do have.
I know I was gonna say, wanted to sit here, you could, it's empty now, but it's up to you.
I don't like my neighbors.
Actually, no, send me that one. We don't have to.
Yeah, go ahead. We are taking a fight. Jackie went to the restroom and.
It's the last one.
Gotta wait till your presentation.
Was it short? Sorry.
No, that was.
Oh.
I wasn't expecting one, but then.
Oh, good.
Now where did Laura go?
So.
She left. No, she left.
Oh, did she leave too?
Yes.
I think we
Laura, are you still there?
said I got.
Oh, no, she's there.
Said,
Wait, what?
he said, we're done.
Just the PowerPoint. It's embedded. Yeah, it's embedded in the.
Oh, yeah.
I think just this. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Bow that food.
You said, I was like, it was so awesome.
Really?
That has never happened. It is.
But
The food is devoured, dog.
it's delicious.
It's never happened like that.
We have a lot of people here tonight. And it was delicious. Always the food.
Oh, what's that one?
But I guess we'll switch to. That was good. I was.
Been going to get started.
It was good that we got distracted.
Yeah, it was, see? It's happened for a reason.
That's right.
I always say that. Doesn't take our recycling.
I've been looking at this document so much anyway that I didn't even notice that it wasn't a PowerPoint.
They do like long.
Hey, that's what I'm saying at go too.
I had to take advantage of the.
That takes a full ride, right?
It don't happen that often.
Willing to make a change.
Lot of power.
Right now.
Hello, Mayor.
Attached to the last hearing committee
Doing okay? You
agenda.
doing?
With like three clients.
What are you looking for?
Raising the bar.
I know.
It's like we're like a beer or something.
I know. It's not like our refinery house. Where the air can go too long.
Oh. Okay. Lisa Weaver? Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Got it? First elected.
Okay, you come back, just come straight on.
Time I got on was
Wait for us.
Better get this done.
part-time, right? Yeah. So I think she might have already been on. I met her at a few.
How you doing?
Family's riding on.
Well, not bad. Yesterday was a tough day today.
Like,
I'm sure they're gonna get
They've been
too far
hanging
ahead of
on.
us also. They're just.
Yeah, it's been a few years now.
They can play golf outside.
Okay, but that would.
I'm still trying to get Jackie to get me out of the steering committee.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
I'm in my second term.
Okay, we started back. Hi, Laura.
Go to the second page, David.
All right. So we just have a snapshot to compare. This is an overview of our adopted budget for fiscal year 23-24 and where our fund balance was at the time. As you can see, at the time, we used 77,000 to cover our deficit in our budget. What the budget that we're currently proposing for fiscal year 24-25 is actually in the black, or net revenue. We have about $11,000 that, and we do not need to utilize our general fund balance to cover any deficits. So it's a balanced budget that we are presenting. And it just shows the change between the two budgets, adopted versus proposed. Next. Thank you. This is also just a snapshot to show again how much where our revenue comes from versus our expenditures. As you can see, we continue to be heavily reliant on our grants or contracts, and that composes the green area on the left. 88% of our revenue is from grants and contracts, and it's then followed by 8%, which is coming from our membership dues from all of the agencies and cities that we work with and collaborate with, and then it's then followed by the 4%, just other general fund reserves. The purple, which is our special assessment, is no longer on this chart as it has been adopted into the dues. On the right side, we have expenditures with our biggest source being professional contractual services. Those are basically contractors or consultants that we appoint or hire so that we can implement the grants and contracts, the 88% on the left. It's then followed by 35%, the green, which is supplies and services. And then last but not least, 30%, which is salaries and benefits. Next. Thank you. We have some noteworthy changes that we would like to highlight, with most of them being LA County REN. We were previously contracted with REN, and then it was like a pass-through through LA County, but now we are directly contracted with LA County for REN work. So that reflects an increase for additional funding. The next noteworthy change is homeless services. We have a new source of funding, 600,000. Street to housing. So that is also new funding that we have from LA County. The next noteworthy change is LA County Innovation Fund. We have a contract rollover that we are anticipating. So that changes our revenue up for about 60% increase. And lastly, we also have additional funding from SoCal Gas. It was initially 100,000. Now it's 200,000. So that also reflects an increase in revenue due to additional funding. And next we have some noteworthy changes for expenditure side. The most being salaries and benefits. We've had a couple of changes in staffing due to increased funding, as we saw on the previous slide. And the next one would be equipment or lease needs. That increases based on program needs and contract needs. And lastly, we also have an increase in specialty or legal services. And that's also due to the overall increased need of the organization. I'll pass this on to Kim. She will talk about some of the contracts that are no longer carrying over into this new fiscal year and some that we're anticipating.
So we have been reporting out to everybody that that the state of California was not able to fund the California Green Business Network certification program. And as a result of that, we don't have contracts with the city of El Segundo, Hawthorne, and Torrance this year. The cities are not receiving those funds, and so there's not program monies to even help them implement. We still do have our Green Business Assist program, which is our educational program, and all of the businesses that we have engaged with through this Green Business Network. And that work is even beyond these three cities. It covers the entire South Bay. That work still goes on. And we actually, I'm going to report to you, we have hit 403 businesses that are engaged in that program. These are active businesses that engage with us and learn about energy savings, water savings, waste reduction, sustainable actions. And then Torrance Water contract, you all know that we no longer have the contract with Torrance Water. And then we have several grants that we're working on. One is we submitted the Caltrans grant to support more work with the LTN, and you can see the amount there. The SoCal REN Direct Install, this is a program that we are hoping that LA County will get through a state-funded grant, and it's for decarbonization direct install in disadvantaged communities throughout the South Bay. It's a very large network of organizations working together, including the other subregions, as well as community-based organizations, and maybe even the WIB will be involved in this because it's workforce development as well. And so that's very exciting. I hope we get that. And then we have an extreme heat grant that we submitted for. That would be educating the community on extreme heat. And then wildfire, that was a grant that Talia on our team put together for the peninsula. Also an education grant. And then we have a pilot that we've submitted to SoCal REN because we had our recognition ceremony. Many of you were there for that. We had a fantastic speaker who talked about cool surfaces. And we had a lot of interest from the cities about doing cool surfaces. And I think pavement a little bit, but pavement is not yet considered energy efficient. So we're going to look at roofs, and then this would hopefully fund a study to see if that's feasible for cities. A lot of people say, why don't you just go ahead and do it? Well, is it feasible? Does it make sense? So that's what this study is going to do. Oh, and we will need staff and probably contractors to help us with this if we get all these grants.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions, my colleagues? Debbie?
What's the bump up in the expenditures for specialty legal services due to?
Well, Mike Jenkins for the last 25 years, I think, has given us pro bono service.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Well, this is a big issue though, because when he started easing out of it, he affiliated with Best and Krieger. He now when he has when we ask him for something more than just regular Brown Act issues, the SBFN, the fiber network or anything else, he goes to a BBK lawyer and we pay that rate. So we're starting to have to pay legal services for specialty things. But Mike is also, I don't know if I'm giving anything away, talking about retiring at some point within the next year. And so we will probably have to go out for legal services unless somebody knows another pro bono guy who's really great. So.
I know if any of you doesn't know.
That doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
So that is
What about-
flag for the future, is what I figured.
Show me the money.
Yes.
So fun.
All right. So no direction at this point, just information? Becky, that's right?
Okay, yes, so, no.
One question, just looking at the first page of the budget, I guess page 63 of the agenda packet. It shows that proposed, year to date as of 3/31/24, total revenue is 2.3 million, 354 million, but then total expenditures 2.399. I see our reserves are still intact at 405,000. So where is that delta? I'd say what, $45,000? If I'm reading that correctly, where does that come from?
I would say that that's cash, that's cash flow.
Timing.
Yeah, timing.
Yeah.
So we have outstanding, so a lot of times we don't get paid on invoices for like 3 months.
Okay, got it.
So, but sometimes we have to do those expenditures in advance too, like we have to pay our subcontractors, but we have to get those funds back. So,
I think all of our grants are reimbursable.
yeah,
So that's.
and some of them are larger. We have to really watch it. Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions?
And you know, this isn't the last time you can ask if you go home and you're reading this at night to put yourself to sleep. Please let us know, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
I guess Kim, you're up next on the.
Oh, yes. Okay. So you have my report in the packet, but also just some highlights. We have Lenox School District that has enrolled in the SoCal Ren program, so that's very exciting. And we're going to work with them to do facility improvements as well as some tours and things like that for the students for educational programs through our partners. I already announced about the businesses, the 403 businesses. We also have a Kits for Kids, which is an educational program through the SoCal Ren that targets 3rd and 4th graders. It teaches them about energy efficiency and how to actually hands-on in the classroom and at home, which is really interesting because we just had that presentation about our youth and how we want to make sure our youth is prepared, for the future. And so this program does that. And we're going to have a celebration, and that's going to be on June 4th. And it's Zella Davis Elementary. It's in the city of Hawthorne. Has hit 4 classrooms that have gone through this program, and the kids went through it, and they are receiving $1,000 check per classroom to also be used to support the kids. One classroom in Carson, actually, last year or the year before, I can't remember,
2 years.
2 years ago, used their $1,000 to buy a 3D printer that they brought into the classroom to help with the students for their science work. So there's some really cool things going on. Anyway, we're very excited that you're going to come, and the kids are so excited. They even put together a PowerPoint at their homework. Teacher says, we're going to give them homework. They went home and they took pictures of how they used all this equipment in their home, and that's going to be part of the presentation. So that's really exciting.
And Alex.
You have to know that Salad Day was my first job in Hawthorne when I moved to Hawthorne about
See?
25 years ago.
Yeah.
So you'll know.
So as we roll this out and schools want to have these kinds of programs, we'll reach out to our elected officials to invite them to these ceremonies. And then we've had some meetings with Energy Star portfolio manager, the state program that does the benchmarking for city facilities, or actually all buildings, but we have all of our city facilities in the system. We have all of our utility accounts. There's like thousands of utility accounts that we have connected for the cities into this program. This program looks at certifying Energy Star buildings. You've seen the Energy Star little logo on appliances and things like that. So they do the same thing for buildings, and they get a score. And so we've been meeting with them to see if we can actually get some of our city buildings Energy Star certified, plus I won awards. So, so anyway, we'll be doing that, meeting with them. And so hopefully next year, we might be able to get at least a couple of our city buildings through this program and get some awards for you guys. So we're working on that. Okay, that's all I have, unless there's questions on my report.
Any questions? Thank you. Artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, for those of you that came to the General Assembly, you know that it created a lot of buzz. There was a lot of talk. Oh, there was a lot of talk afterwards. I'm sorry. And I don't know, just
With the air conditioning unit back here.
okay.
Right.
I take it up? Anyway, well, okay, so we decided that after the General Assembly, artificial intelligence just keeps morphing and changing and growing and whatever. And so we were talking at one point about a committee, but we decided we really don't have, you probably don't have the time and we don't have the resources to have a formal committee on this. So what we discussed with the steering committee and what we'd like to create is like quarterly or 3 times a year sessions where it's like lunch and learns. We'll have we'll do a, bring in a speaker and talk about some topic, and we can record that speaker. It can be virtual, and then people can watch it on YouTube later. The first one that David and I have been looking at it would be somebody that could come in and talk about the energy use of these big data centers that are required for artificial intelligence. So we can sort of marry some of our concerns. But we were looking for topics that you might be interested in. I know that Councilman Obaji has mentioned the cryptocurrency and how that if cities are using it, we'd love to know, and how that might be affected by the new technologies. So we're looking for, we're going to set up a date, probably July, August, something, September, for our first one, but that's what we're looking at doing. And we want throughout the year to sort of brief all of you on artificial intelligence. So David, do you want to add anything?
I think you got it all.
Any questions?
I think my own interest is the practical applications for our cities. Obviously, we're in different states of having money available for software as it's updated and have different needs, but I'm interested in how artificial intelligence, beyond it being something scary, how it can facilitate our serving our residents. So I welcome a session on it.
Great. Yeah, and if for some reason you're at a conference and you hear a really, really great speaker, please let us know that as well. Thank you.
Homeless services.
What's name?
On that note, I think one idea is maybe, is any community using artificial intelligence to do plan check? You know, a big complaint we get is, developers put their project in, it takes 2 weeks now, then they get a rejection with notations as to what they need to fix, submit it, more rejections. You know, so that would seem like a really good use of artificial intelligence to efficiently, quickly spit something back out.
And on the same thought, our residents complain that they don't understand, you know, where to find the codes, what they need to do. So how can that help them get all the information right away and you know, eliminate some of the back and forth with staff?
Yeah, I think the county's actually working on some of that. And we were thinking of inviting the county regional planning director to the community development directors meeting so that they could learn from what the county's doing. But that's a good one too.
This is timely because our city council authorized our staff at our policy session to investigate artificial intelligence for things like the speaker at the General Assembly was talking about, job descriptions, memos, you know, easy stuff that is like entry level kind of QB chat kind of stuff. So it's very timely.
Great. Thank you so much, and please keep your suggestions coming.
Homeless.
Homeless is, we have Keenan here and Ronson's on the video, I think, still.
I'm gonna fill in Ronson entirely for homeless.
You're entirely for homeless, okay.
Yeah, pitching in tonight. So yeah, just brief update on homeless services. Ronson mentioned at the board meeting last month that we're tracking this Johnson versus Grants Pass Supreme Court decision. I've been really the person behind the scenes, like telling Ronson, like, hey, let's start to coordinate about, you know, what we think will come down from the Supreme Court. And I really consider us regionally as leaders in our homeless response and how we've brought people together and designed different parts of our system. And so I think we can be leaders in this too. Like, I think when the Supreme Court decision ultimately comes down in June, a lot of cities are going to be scrambling. There's going to be kind of like, how does this impact what we do? And my hope is that we can kind of design some sort of statement or a pledge or something that, hey, we knew this was coming and here's what we're going to continue to commit to as cities. So I think steering committee in June is going to be another discussion potentially about like what we can put together based on what we expect. And we definitely welcome like all of your legal expertise as far as what you anticipate is going to happen and all that. But for those that weren't here last month or are less familiar, it's generally about what is a legal response to camping on the street and how can cities legally respond and enforce their camping rules laws if they have them. So yeah, that's kind of what I had on that.
Yeah.
Any questions? Thank you for the report.
And then Keenan's also going to report on the
Senior.
Yeah, and then on the senior service front, our next working group meeting is coming up next week. It's Tuesday, 5/28 at 9:30 a.m. And we're gonna have special guest founder of Senior Services Working Group, Grace Farwell, will be joining us, former COG member as well. She's started up as the new project coordinator at Help for Seniors, so she's back into the space and working specifically in senior services. And then Diane Brown from Hawthorne will also showcase their city's efforts for seniors at that meeting. And then just the last note, the county did recently reopen its rent relief program for small landlords. And so applications are back opened up and can be submitted through June 4th. That website is lacountyrentrelief.com. So that's for rental arrears that are still going on.
Any questions? All right. Transportation report?
Okay, I think Mayor Butts is here. Do you want to do this, Mayor Butts?
I'm game to do anything. What do you want to do?
You want to talk about the Metro budget meeting today, the budget presentation, what you did?
Right.
C line, a couple of things that
C-line.
might affect us.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody's here from Lawndale and Redondo Beach. Lawndale. Okay, so there are a lot of residents in Lawndale and Redondo Beach that do not want the C line to go down the right of way.
I hadn't heard about that.
I hadn't heard about it. And so, I committed to design mostly, but to those people that the 25,000 emails that I got. I had to increase the size of my Gmail mailbox, and they had to increase the size of my city mailbox. But I was already there, because someone had quoted me in the comments of what I promised to do, and they were right on the money. And so here's where we were. There were the votes to go ahead and approve it to go down the right of way as opposed to Hawthorne. And so I submitted a motion today that this would not be a commitment to build, but only an authorization to go ahead with the CEQA documents and complete studies giving equal credence to both options. Because if I could have voted no and then it would just voted in as this way, there's no commitment, and we live to fight another day. And that was the best that I could do. And so we just have to keep fighting.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome.
That was it?
What about the budget? What about the budget? Did you discuss the budget?
Discuss the Metro budget?
Yeah. Was there anything?
What's in the agenda packet was the presentation from.
Oh, right. Was there anything else? What about the safety issues at Metro today?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's discussion about safety issues now. Now, understand this, we have about 1 million people a day that ride the Metro. And the total number of crimes committed on the system are de minimis. However, every one of them, just like every time a plane crashes or something happens on a plane, is publicized. And so what does that do? That affects public perception about safety. And the point I made was that people that ride our trains and buses, they are trapped in a small confined space with whoever might do whatever. And that's not acceptable. And so my position is that one,
if we're going to be using the LAPD, the sheriffs in Long Beach, that those resources need to be geolocated real time. They need to be on the buses and the trains. Okay, there were motions put forward to have a surge and add more. What good does it do to add more if you don't know where those resources are? To give you a prime example, I asked how many people were deployed right now today policing the system. And the CEO said they won't give us that information. I said, okay, see, that's ridiculous. I said the person that's chief of safety should have the credibility and authority to demand that type of information. So that's first of all, there's no sense in talking about adding people if you don't know that they're on the system. Secondly, 9 years ago, I was talking about all these things when I was head of the public safety committee, but people are always afraid. They were very more concerned about criminalizing people than they were about the reality that if we don't make the system safe, you're not going to increase ridership. So everybody is there now, and here's a fact. Everyone that's a fare evader does not commit a crime, but everyone that has committed a crime and is arrested is a fare evader. Okay? So we need to tighten up our stations as far as who gets on the system. There needs to be checks of people getting off the system to catch people that slip through. Secondly, we will never have enough police officers to provide a presence for 1 million people a day. We won't. But what we can do is have cameras that are artificial intelligence enabled that will catch people's faces, that will cross-reference them to
on
databases of people that are on probation or people that are wanted. Okay? And some people feel that that's an invasion of privacy. Well, you don't have any privacy when you get on public transportation. That's my opinion. And we also need to use millimeter wave technology that detects knives and guns inside backpacks, the kind of things that we've been using in airports forever. And that's 100%. And those, when you detect something like that, it needs to go to a command post, and they need to dispatch someone real time to where someone is getting on a bus or a train with a weapon. That's an omnipresence that you can't get with human resources. And so, you know, there were a lot of recommendations made. Those were mine. And we have a study coming back in June about the feasibility of Metro enacting its own policing force for the system. But the reality is that to stand up your own force will take at least 3 to 4 years. So we'll be dealing with contract policing, but we immediately have to start geolocation of our assets. And when I brought it up 9 years ago, the unions were opposed to it, the police unions. They felt it was a hazard to the officers, and I didn't have the support. We have the support now. And I mean, that's where we are.
Dang. Yeah, I wanted to thank Mayor Butts because, as he said at the meeting today, I've texted and called him, met with him a bunch, and even I've texted him before after I heard that he made some comments at a mayor's meeting that were adverse to the Hawthorne Boulevard alignment, and then he called me and we had a robust discussion. And I'll say this, more than any other representative at that level, he has been communicative, in touch, willing to talk, willing to listen. And frankly, I've been to enough Metro board meetings now, more than I ever imagined I'd go to, that it improved what staff recommended almost, religiously. So today was a far departure from that, thanks to him and his leadership, and leaving the door open for our residents who came out with all their hearts, with their T-shirts, very respectfully. Supervisor Mitchell told them, "Don't clap. If you're happy, go like this. If you're upset, go like this." They listened,
It was the most beautiful display of public input that I'd ever seen. A man came with his baby and stayed for the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Nursing his baby, you know, giving him a bottle. I told him, I said, you guys have prevailed. And I said, but you gotta bring the guy with a baby next time we vote.
So, well, it certainly wasn't the result that I was going for. It is, I appreciate it greatly.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to find out what is being done currently in the way of security. I know I come from DC and people don't even get to the track unless they have a ticket that a turnstile lets them in. And you have to physically jump over the turnstile to get in there, which is pretty obvious.
And we don't have those, and that's what's part of the discussion, that we need barriers. But we need to get the most of the police presence that we have, because I believe, see, here's the reality. This is from being a police chief 3 times. When agencies enter into these contracts, they are budget supplements to supplement their street patrols, and they assign units to what's supposed to be the system, but officers will primarily be in cars. And that doesn't do us any good.
No.
We need people on the platform. We need them riding the trains and the buses. But we definitely, most assuredly, need cameras with artificial intelligence. We definitely need millimeter wave technology. I'm flying back to Minneapolis or someplace in a week to look at Guardian Systems, a system.
But take a look at the success rate that they have at the airports with that. It ain't that good.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you this. I don't hear about anybody getting stabbed on a plane.
Okay, but it rarely happened before. I mean, it's.
Well, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I worked at the airport. I worked at the airport. I'll tell you this, it's far better than what we have. And it also gives someone, if they know that we have this type of technology, they're reluctant to do it. And here's another thing. If you know that your picture is being taken, that you're being videoed.
Well, that's another matter.
Okay, but it's a comprehensive thing. The reason people wear ski masks when they go to rob liquor stores is because they know there's cameras in there.
I'm just saying, don't be too quick on that particular technology. Because from everything I've heard, it doesn't really work.
That's why I'm going to see the latest iteration of this system called Guardian Systems, okay? We have to do something, and
I was attacked on transit. I'm probably the only one here who I've been a victim. So believe me, I'm sensitive to it.
Well, I'm not saying that you're not, but what I'm saying is I do believe there's technology available now that can make things better than they are. I do know that if someone's not crazy, if they know there's technology available that can detect guns and knives, at least you'll dissuade some of those people that are willing to get on the system. I believe that if everybody that gets on is forced to have a fare, you will knock out a lot of people that are good on the system just to victimize people. So I'm more tilted toward being action oriented as opposed to worrying about what might not work. I want to see what does work, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm not being paid to do that. I'm going on the city's dime because we have a stadium and we have those same kind of issues. And I want to know what type of technology is available to protect people.
John?
Jim, thank you for those suggestions. How were they received by the rest of the board?
Oh, the board they're in a different place nowadays than they were 5 years ago. You know, because of what's happened over the last few weeks. I mean, 2 murders and 2 to 3 other stabbings. And the reality is, though, when you look at the total numbers for the total riders, it's de minimis. But every time something happens on a bus or train, it's going to be publicized. So people think this is something that happens every day in every way.
But it's not.
That's just not true. The numbers are de minimis for the number of people that use the system, but that we have to live with that and we have to do better.
So I mean, as a DA that filed transit bureau cases, I do know that cameras do help. The pixelation was crappy, but we could at least make out, and there was a way to enhance it. You could give it to somebody to enhance the image. But they need
The
better
technology
data.
is much better
But
now.
they never had cameras in the elevators, so people were getting mugged in the elevators. I hope they put them.
Cameras are gonna be in the elevators. They're in some elevators now.
Okay.
But the thing is, what we have to do is have state-of-the-art artificial intelligence enabled cameras that will recognize faces and cross-index some better cameras.
And at the moment.
Yeah,
And
I
if you're,
agree with
and if
you.
you're a crook and you know that that technology is there at the platforms, as you get on the buses, let me tell you something. That's gonna dissuade 90% of those people.
Well, you need to talk to the state legislature because they're trying to take out any biometric data from body worn cameras and all this other stuff. When you have missing children, you could be talking to, they could get unified with
Don't
their
you wonder
parents.
what they're thinking about sometimes?
I don't know what they're smoking up there. I'm telling you. So.
Stand up there or something.
We want to protect me.
Or so it's thin.
Thank you for that report. Any other questions? Thank you again for that.
You're welcome.
I have an announcement to make, because I want to just know, I sent you all a save the date. We are working with Inglewood staff on a request that they're planning to come in to our June meeting for funding, request for the, Inglewood Transit Connector. And so this is going to be a complicated request, and we are scheduling the steering committee meeting, which is noon on June 10th, for a workshop. We're going to put as much as we can on the consent calendar, and we're going to have 1.5 hours or so to really go through the request and the context of it for the COG and the whole business. So we not only would like you there, but we've been asked by the steering committee to invite city managers and public works directors or anybody else in your city that you'd like to be there. It's going to be virtual and obviously present as well.
It's never complicated to have success, you guys, so I don't like that predicate for anything that you're going to do that's gonna be successful. That's like freeloading a meeting, and I don't like that.
I'm sorry, it's going to be complicated.
Yeah, okay. Everything can be complicated if you view it as complicated. Complicated is going up against AEG, MSG, to move sports teams. That's complicated. Okay, this is mathematics based on income streams that are gonna come into the South Bay COG, which I think is somewhere like 6.4 billion over the next 5 years. So we complicated is what you make complicated. So I don't like setups like that. This is something to be worked out. And the reality is anything that we ask for is going to be a loan and paid back if we need it, because where we are is at backstop money, about $340 million in backstop money to qualify for the release of $1 billion. Okay, that is not a complicated thing to understand.
So tell us what you really feel.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's not the way that I think about things, right? The money's there, it's available, and we probably won't need it, but we need it to get the billion from the federal government. And so if we do need it, we're gonna pay it back. What's complicated about that?
Okay, we'll do it.
Come on the 10th and find out.
We'll have it. Local Travel Network.
Yep, Local Travel Network. We'd like to show you, this was Bike Safety Month, and do you have it, David? And our Civic Spark fellow who's been working on the Local Travel Network did a video, and it's less than a minute, I think. We'd like to show it to you. You got it?
There we go.
Okay.
Did you know that May is National Bike Month? This year we are celebrating Bike to Work Week from May 13th through May 19th. Follow along on my commute this week and consider hopping on your own bike to go to work or run an errand. I like to ride into work because I get my exercise in and the crisp wind really wakes me up in the morning. This street that I'm riding on is one of the proposed streets for the Local Travel Network. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour, the lanes are wide enough for cars to pass me, and it's residential, so not many cars are on the road today. Research from the South Bay City's Council of Governments has shown that 70% of trips in the South Bay are less than 3 miles, so you don't actually need a car to go where you want to go. So I made it safely to the COG office, and I got a decent workout in, and I'm all ready to start my day. If you're riding a bike or an e-bike in traffic, make sure to follow all of the traffic laws. Wear a helmet, stop at every stop sign, share the lane with cars if it's wide enough, and use hand signals to make sure you are safe and visible to drivers. Happy Bike Safety Month!
That's Anne. She did that all by herself. Hey. So we got a lot of enthusiasm going on at the local travel network, and we just learned, we're working with Embassy Suites in El Segundo, which is now renting bikes, e-bikes. And Anne went there today to give them information. So they were really thrilled to hear about the local travel network. And we just went to Lawndale and had I think, a very good meeting in Lawndale. So we're excited about that. And I think the cities have put in their Measure M applications, and we're just looking for more ideas and places that we can spread the word. So I think that's it.
Thank
Local
you.
travel network.
All right. Then the nominating committee report?
That would probably be you.
Yeah. Yes, it will be. I'm sure everyone received the email in regarding nominations for second vice president. And what we want today is the names of individuals who are interested in being considered for that particular post with the COG. And the nominating floor is open as of now. Nobody?
Well, we have,
There's two on there.
Are the names on there? Are we already nominated or we need to get nominated?
I know that there was some that was actually already submitted, but again, those who were here could actually, if there was others.
yeah, there are the three names that are down here are Chris Pimentel, Mayor Pro Tem of El Segundo, Bill Uphoff, Mayor of Lomita, and Zaino Baji, Councilmember from Redondo. We do not vote tonight. Tonight is the night we open nominations, and we vote at the June board meeting.
Just a question. I see Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel is listed, but I've not seen him at these board meetings. Does he have a conflict? Or is there a reason why he's not been here? Because
I have no idea. Have he ever told you?
No,
No,
no, we don't know.
you can take, you take that in consideration.
I believe he's been attending Zoom, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm representing him.
No,
But no.
he's only been at our transportation committee. He hasn't been at the steering committee.
So he asked me to attend today or on behalf of him as an alternate. I will ask him when I see him. Thank you.
No, he's the alternate. He is the alternate, and I think Bill Huff's the alternate. But it's our understanding, the way the election works is by July 1st, they must be the delegate.
I believe, is
Drew's the
delegate and then Pimentel is the alternate.
Well, you're all the alternates. In
Right.
El Segundo, all the council members other than Drew are
Yeah.
alternates.
So has someone from El Segundo not been here?
Yes, for the last couple of months.
The attendance sheet is on page 5.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. Like I said, I'm
The alternate,
further down alternate. So I
Alternate.
will take care of that.
the alternate.
Yes. I just got the notification at 3:00 today, asking if I'd like to come. So
So,
I apologize on behalf of El Segundo.
Justin,
I nominate Bill Uphoff for second vice chair.
I better second that.
And give up your delegate seat.
You know what? We all work together.
Yeah, that's good.
so you got that?
Yes, Bill Uphoff. Well, okay, so I don't know how you want to handle this. Is the nominating committee putting Chris's name in? Is Zane's name going in? Or
All three names are going to be on a ballot, and when we come in November, in June, you know, I'm.
he's planning on extending
In
chairmanship.
June, then we do vote who that person will be based on who gets the highest vote getter. That's the person that's going to be for the second vice chair.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
There's no other nomination.
This is an executive director's dream that you're all going to have a contested election.
Yes. Be ready to do your 3-minute speech. As well.
I will know.
We got it.
Okay, they have a campaign song and slogan.
Upcoming events.
I just have an announcement to make, and I can't remember what the RMC is. Adrian Mohan is the director of the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. And for a long time, we've been supporting her appointment to the
It's the Rivers and Mountains
Rivers and Mountains Conservancy.
Conservancy, and it was a gubernatorial appointment, but.
And she just got appointed to that board to represent our area of South Bay. So we sent her a letter, but we also wanted to let you know that we have somebody on that board appointed by the governor. That's the only announcement I have.
Nobody's having any announcements?
I'll do one more. Yeah, no, there's upcoming on June 1st, our executive
Yeah, I
director
was
is getting an award at the HELP Gala Starry Night Harbor Lights. Jackie's getting an award and I'm going to be in attendance and probably many others are going to be there as well.
I was going to do it.
Is that what you're going to say?
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. Oh, sorry,
go ahead.
no, you go first. Barry.
So August 7th, Cal State Dominguez Hills will be hosting, I should have mentioned it while he was here, the State of the District with Supervisor Mitchell. So mark your calendar.
August 7th.
August 7th. Not sure if that's going to be a lunch or a late afternoon evening thing yet. Stay tuned. Actually, and if you haven't been there, the facility at Cal State Dominguez Hills, we're going to have this is really beautiful. And you've probably seen it on TV. It's on Space Force. So that is the space campus that they use is actually Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Okay, so I wanted just to let everybody know to be in touch with their supervisors. We were learning at Contract Cities last week that there is current negotiations going on between LA County Council and the Sheriff's Department. Well, actually, the Sheriff's Department just has apparently just a recommendation type role, but LA County Council is negotiating with Cal DOJ for a consent decree that could affect the services for those of us who are contract cities that the sheriffs provide for their communities. There's not been liberty to release what the demands were made in the consent decree by Cal DOJ, but it's been heard that it's like over 100 pages, and that may not be all. But there's no written report of investigative findings that would lead to a consent decree. So cities were informed about that, and the sheriff himself, said, anybody here concerned about your the services you get, or those are contract cities? And people were just thinking it was a rhetorical question, but then, and then everybody, no, we are. So he said, so there needs to be visibility of this and just inquire, because apparently I did some little bit of research. This happened several years ago that Cal DOJ looked into Vallejo PD for some type of consent decree. And they were criticized in the press by a federal monitor that said that when we do this at the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, we put out a report to inform the community what the investigative findings are. And so Cal DOJ, and this is coming from somebody who was an assistant deputy over the Civil Rights Division and now was working as a federal monitor. So she was actually saying Cal DOJ should make this information public. People need to know what the investigative findings are. And as a DA, I know we have to have evidence before we file charges. And it's unheard of that we could charge somebody and say, oh, we're not going to give you the evidence that supports it. So in a way, this is something that at least there should be investigative findings that are supported by evidence, and that evidence needs to tie into the demands that are being made. It can't just be something, well, now that we have you here, we're going to ask you to do this or that, and so forth. I just want people to be aware of that so that you can be dialoguing with your supervisors, because the supervisors control LA County Council.
So this is different than class action on overcharges by the sheriff's department.
Different.
This
Oh,
sounds
yes.
like civil rights and.
This is something that the
Which are?
Becerra took over and started an investigation. I think it started with the gangs, the deputy gangs, but I don't know if it's limited. Apparently, it sounds like it may be morphing into something bigger. So there have to be some investigative findings so that you can compare the findings, the doc, and the evidence, and then see if there's a rational, reasonable relationship between that and the demands that are being made.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other, oh,
Real quick, I've been in meetings since 8 o'clock this morning, so if I sounded a little bit ticked off, I apologize. But okay, it's been a long day. And so I realize that things can be complicated, but I'm more biased towards success. I also wanted to reissue the invitation that we're having an economic summit at the Intuit Dome on June 28th. And your information's on the City of Inglewood website if you're interested in attending. The invitation is going out to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we only have room for like 500 people. And the tickets are
only 500?
Huh?
Only 500?
It's building up fast.
I've had one where we had 700 people. But this
And it feels fast.
Be at the Intuit Dome, and it's gonna be something.
When is it?
June 28th, between 11 and 2.
I thought it was going to be your state of the city.
Well, it's an economic summit because the state attorney general is talking about saying if you have a state of the city,
Oh.
it has to be a notice meeting.
I heard about that.
So-
Like, what the?
Yeah,
That's something new.
when you say what,
That's new.
Yeah.
what are they thinking about?
Yeah.
No, it's new, because we didn't get ours.
All right, so
They said we were in violation. After,
So crazy.
loopholes, right?
okay, loophole.
Right. Same people are coming, but okay.
Thought of something else.
Yeah, so anyway, everyone's invited.
Okay.
I don't have an announcement, but I just want to say congratulations to Gardena, Redondo Beach, Inglewood, and Hawthorne for the Matter Ballot this morning. So all our officers were there, well represented, and we are there saving lives and not taking lives, so.
Congratulations. And with that, we are adjourned.
Wow. Aren't you special?
That at all.